How does reasonable salary work for S-Corp owners? I hear so much and see so much on the internet about this that is just false. People think that there's a formula. I've heard there's a formula. I've heard that if you don't do it right, you're going to jail. I've heard that you don't have to pay any salary. I've heard it all over the board. The bottom line is that it's gray. There is really no hard and fast rule for how much salary you need to pay yourself. The tax code says you need to pay yourself a reasonable salary. Now, what is reasonable? That's up to the interpretation a lot of times of the IRS auditor. If you're in the middle of an audit and the IRS auditor doesn't feel it's reasonable, they can speak to you about it. One of the big misconceptions is that the IRS is not necessarily responsible for collecting those Social Security taxes, and that's what they're really trying to get at when they're trying to get you to pay a salary, is really those payroll taxes, the FICA tax and the Medicare tax. The Social Security Administration is really responsible for following up on that, but IRS agents have a duty to report that if they can see abuse or clearly that you owe some of that tax. One of the examples that I can give from I had a client that was making about $600,000 a year, and for 10 years he was paying himself a $20,000 salary every year. And we went through the audit and they had identified this, and they had thought that a reasonable salary was about $120,000. And that's what they laid on the table, and they wanted to go back and assess tax on prior years. Well, at the end of the day, what we ended up settling with them is that we would raise the salary to $80,000 going forward, and there would be no back taxes. So there was a big swing in the negotiation during that period of time. So if you go from $120,000 all the way back to 10 years ago, all the way to ending up at an $80,000 go-forward salary, you can see that it's very gray. There's certainly no hard and fast rule. It's just a matter of what the IRS auditor feels comfortable with. Now, in that situation, the auditor was a little bit more liberal than others. I've seen some be more hardcore on it, but a lot of times it's a negotiation. My advice to most clients is be on the aggressive side on it, because it is pretty gray, and I don't see a lot of people having trouble with it. I can't remember. It's been years since I've had somebody really get penalized for paying too low of a salary. There's lots of exclusions to paying yourself a high salary in a business. A lot of it comes down to how much cash does the business have available. Can he even pay you a market rate salary? So they look at things like, are you taking money out of the company to buy boats and cars? And there's a human element to a lot of this where it seems like people just try to do the right thing. But if your market rate is $100,000 and the business doesn't have money to give you, you're going to get a pass on it. But if you're distributing yourself $400,000 and your argument is I didn't have enough cash to pay myself a salary, that's probably not a very good argument. So that's really a case-by-case basis. And when I talk to clients about it, I have to collect a lot of facts about what's surrounding it. And then I kind of think about, what does my argument look like to an IRS auditor if I was to try to explain why the salary is low. Some people just want to be conservative and pay themselves a market rate. That's fine. But that tax is huge. It's a 15.3% tax. So on $100,000, it's $15,300. And if a lot of people want to save that money and not pay it unnecessarily, and some people choose not to. And my job is really just to make sure that the clients are educated and that they know the cost benefit and the risk reward with it. But to answer the question full circle, S-Corp salaries, very subjective, very case by case, and it really is a gray area. I definitely think that anybody should get professional advice before they decide on what salary to give themselves.